We are storytellers by nature, sharing with others what we experience, perceive, and believe of life, our joys, adventures, our losses. We tell ourselves stories as well. Some leave us trapped by false beliefs and self-doubt. But there are also stories of persisting, exploring, and rising above. Stories of uncovering the truth, enabling powerful transformation and triumph. These are those stories. These are your stories. Hello, folks. Welcome, welcome, welcome. It is time for, and so it is, stories of truth, transformation, and triumph. My name is Zoe DeMuro. My pronouns are he and him. I'm a spiritual counselor, religious science practitioner with the New Thought Media Network, and a transformational coach. Both my ministry and my mission are to help people to co-create their most authentic and most fulfilling life experience. I am truly honored and excited to bring you this show each Saturday, on the first Saturday of the month, actually, at 11 a.m. Mountain Time, 10 a.m. Pacific. If this is your first time, great to have you here. If you're returning, welcome back. In each episode of this show, we'll hear how people like you, like me, who have been held back by false limiting beliefs have uncovered their truth, enabling them to transform their life experience and triumph because of their spiritual journey. So let's get on with today's episode. Today, I am truly honored to have Reverend Dr. Robert Brzezinski as my guest today. Now, his bio could take like this entire episode, so I'm just going to go with this. This is the way Reverend Robert has described himself. He says he's a visionary, a mystic, a teacher, a mentor, a creator, and an explorer of the human condition. He is also the founder and senior minister of the New Thought Media Network, and my senior minister. So please help me welcome Reverend Dr. Robert Brzezinski.
Hello, dear Zoe. How are you?
I am fabulously, wonderfully well. And you?
Very, very well. And equally honored to be here and to be on the program with you and to be kicking off 2025 with you. So I know it's a limited number of episodes per year, so it's not easy to get on your program. and again, I'm really honored to be here. Thanks for having me.
It only took you 8 months.
Yeah. Exactly.
All right. So we are here to understand something about a transformation that has occurred in your life. And I know, from what I know of your history, there have been a number of them. So clue us in. Where are we starting? What condition or circumstance are we going to begin with?
Ooh, you just said the word condition. And I went, oh, wait a minute. But what the science of mind has taught me in just over 20 years is that even if I don't like it, I have some personal responsibility in the things that are going on in my life. And when I come to those places that I really don't like, that's where the conditions seem to be the biggest. And truthfully, where the limiting old false beliefs are the most entrenched. In the world of ministry, for me, there's sort of that ethos, that commitment to do no harm. And ministry, we're not the only ones, spiritual leaders, whatever name or perspective we want to look at, we're not the only ones that sort of take that oath to first do no harm. And so there's, in many ways, no greater teaching, failing, opportunity for growth, learning, that happens when, as a minister, you realize, well, heck, people have been hurt.
Mm.
And even if it's only just one person that's been hurt, it's, oh, heck, somebody's been hurt. Now, again, over time, with lots of practice, and I believe, or at least I have, and many of my colleagues have said the same types of things to me, that we learn how to identify, transcend those hurts. We learn to identify when they're happening sooner and hopefully not doing harm. And we also learn how to make amends and how to learn from those experiences. So in preparation, and thank you very much for sending a wonderful collection of very deep questions for me to ponder in preparation for today's experience. And I say it all the time, the quality of our lives is directly proportional to the quality of our questions. And so these deep questions, I just actually posted finished posting a Substack article that reminds us that we have to be willing to look within and ask those deeply introspective questions if we really intend to learn and to grow. And so for me, I've come to this kind of, and I wrote it in the questions there. I was both hired and fired by a spiritual community in less than 12 months.
Mm.
In less than a year. And in that, people got hurt. Now, not physically. No one was harmed physically, but people were harmed in their experience of this philosophy, in their experience of my leadership, in the experience of how the organizations that we're a part of dealt with this, and there was conflict, and people walked away feeling hurt. And truthfully, what I wasn't able or willing to admit in the moment of it was I was pretty hurt too.
Mm.
And what I didn't fully understand and realize in the experience was that it was going to take some time for me to do my healing too. Now, there's a lot more to the story, as they say. And part of that is that I had recently, over the 3 to 4 years prior to this, launched a spiritual community and eventually closed that spiritual community. So this wasn't just oops, I made a mistake. This was a second big loss or mistake, if you will, in a row.
Mm.
It wasn't the same experience. It wasn't the same reasons. It wasn't the same people, but I was the same me. Right? I was no different. And I had to be willing and and continually. And it's become part of my operating principles, if you will. It's become part of my leadership style that I want to make sure we as an organization, New Thought Media Network, and again, always grateful that you're a part of it, we as a network don't do to people what was done to me or what was done to others by me, if that makes some sense.
Okay, so, well, I certainly do understand that. I'm trying to understand where the false beliefs came from. So you had this very successful community. And I would imagine that having gone through that experience, it's like, yes, I can do this.
Right.
Okay. So what would you say was kind of pulling you off the path when you got to this other community?
We can call it arrogance. We can call it superiority. We can call it the ego. And really, it was a bit of all of that. And I am a highly trained rising star in the science of mind organizations, and I start and understand, I'm not blaming the people, the schooling, the educational process, the philosophy in any way, because I personally needed to go through those types of experiences, because I was the guy in ministry school saying, "Put me in, coach. I'm ready. I can lead a community. Let's go. I got this. I can see what's going on. I know what's happening. Yep, it's cool." And because that's the way it had always been for me. And in spiritual leadership, from the day I first walked into a religious science church, and that's what we were at that time. We were the Church of Religious Science in Salt Lake City, Utah. From that day, I had been grooming myself for leadership. I'd been doing what I was told to do. I'd been taking all the right classes. I'd been following the path, and the doors were continuously opening for me. I later learned that in some instances I was sort of kicking the door open rather than it being open for me. So it was sort of a mixture of all of that. I am who I am, a rising star in this movement. You are a community that has fallen in love with me and wants me to come and move my family and be a part of your community. And I know what we need to do. And I don't want to play, and I don't want to say, "Oh, woe is me, nobody could see that." And I don't want to say that, well, they were all wrong because they didn't see that. Right? And I don't want to let the personalities within the community, I don't want to blow past that and say that there weren't some very strong, opinionated personalities in that community that wouldn't see what I was sharing, what I was trying to teach, what I was trying to become for that community. And in that, it's there's a couple of the personalities that I have maintained contact with, and we have spoken about these things, and we've come to our own understandings of our own growth in that. And there are others that I have never spoken to again. And we're going on 10 years now. So, and I do know that there are those that probably could care less about any of it. There's those that are like, yeah, well, that happened. You know, it was part of your journey. It was part of our journey. It was part of everybody's journey. And yeah, that happened, and have not concerned themselves one iota about that experience or that time or those months, and continue to move forward with the vision of who they are and who they get to be in that community and how they show up. And that community had after me, it wasn't all that long before a new senior minister came into that community that was the right match. In New Thought, if you ask anybody why a relationship between a community and a minister didn't work out, you're going to generally get the answer that, oh, it just wasn't a fit. I can't tell you how many times I've watched ministers and communities spend a very short amount of time together and claim it just wasn't a fit. That's code often for something bigger. that we don't want to. I heard it said this way once by Dr. Roger Teal. We're ministers. We're human. We muck up, but we don't go to church and tell everybody about it on Sunday. We wait until we've learned the lesson. We wait until we really understand what was happening in consciousness to make that experience happen in form. And when we really understand the deeper implications in our own journey, then we can talk about it. Then it makes sense.
I've heard a minister say, don't bleed on the pulpit.
Oh, God, yeah. and the truth is, and if you're bleeding, if you wake up on a Sunday morning and you're bleeding, I trust you have somebody in your Rolodex you can call and say, I trust you. Guess what? Today's the day God's calling you to your greatness. And it's happening through me because I'm not going to be there and I'm not going to be speaking today, and you are. So put on your fancy shoes and put on your good clothes and get your butt to work. Right. And I've had that phone call and I've given that phone call.
Mm-hmm.
We cannot stand in front of a community and profess leadership if we don't have our own stuff together. And unfortunately, that happens far more often than I would like to see it happen or hear about it happening.
Mm-hmm.
So, for me, this experience was a truly massive transformation because I had packed up my family and moved schools and moved halfway across the country. I did all the things that I had been trained to do and that I had convinced myself I was superiorly qualified to do. And when the rubber met the road, I wasn't fully qualified. Now, the good news comes at that point that if I always credit Michael Beckwith with this one because he's where I heard it first. He probably got it from somebody else too, but I heard it from him first. And that is that God does not call the qualified. God qualifies the called. And it is that experience that led me to that deeper question of, what am I really called here? What am I really being called to? Am I being called? Or is this just an ego glamour play? Is this just some fanciful idea of how to get beyond myself and skip ahead of the line kind of thing?
So how did you get from, so you've just been fired by this CSL, and you have had this understanding that, maybe I wasn't as ready as I thought I was, but how did you bridge that? What happened in between those two? So how did you get to that realization?
The realization doesn't come, in my case, didn't come all that easily. So immediately following, I had nowhere to go. And kids were still in school. We had made a commitment. There was a part of us that felt like we're trapped here now. And through the graciousness of a new friend, we were offered space to meet and connect, and we debated staying in the community for a while. And for a number of months, we did. We held a different, unique type of service. We did something different as far as conversation and community than anybody was doing in the area. It's a little more common now. At first, I didn't let this slow me down at all. And that's kind of part of the lesson as well. I wasn't willing to slow down. I was caught in that perspective that said, okay, whether we're staying or we're going, I got to keep making a living, and I got to dive back, and this is what I know, and this is what financially we're relying upon this and in all of that, when that next didn't work as well as I wanted, there were some people that came to what I was doing and came and experienced, and it felt a lot like striving and really kind of pushing for people to come to again, so I could feel good about all the education I had and all the opportunity that I had. So when the real awareness comes is when the bank account starts drying up, when the opportunities start drying up, and when the kids come to dinner and say, we want to move back to Colorado. And the realization that, okay, we're going to load up another truck and we're going to move halfway back across the country from where we just came in a little over a year's time. And all told, we were away from Colorado a total of 15 months. Right. Of course, the housing market jumped up during those 15 months and came back to a totally different housing situation and market than when we left. And so it took actually a complete breakdown of everything to really, really start listening. And even then, it's not that I allowed the limiting beliefs to hold sway. It's that I started to not believe in myself. And we came back to Colorado, but I spent many, many months, a couple of years, in a fairly low-grade depression, doing little things here and there, but I wasn't answering my call. That's for sure. And we were scraping, just getting by. And it was in the true, in facing true, absolute implosion of everything, that I started to really, really listen for the deeper meaning, I want to say, for the deeper calling. There was a time where, and I'm an ordained minister at this point, and I'm contemplating kicking it all to the curb and the heck with it all and walking away from all of it. And there's this thing. I talk about it quite often. Once you learn and understand the principles of the science of mind, you can't go back to the way it was. You can't pretend you don't understand. You're You are personally responsible for the conditions and experiences of your life. You can try to stick your head in the sand. You can fake it and pretend it's not, you don't know what's going on. And you can pretend to go back to the victimhood of, oh, poor me, and why is this happening, and blah, blah, blah. But once you really know it, you can't hide from yourself. You can't hide from your truth. Now, people do still try, and they use alcohol, they use drugs, and they use sex, and they use shopping, and they use all kinds of addictions to try to hide from what they know to be the truth of who they are and why they've come here. Why we choose to take on these bodysuits.
I would also suggest, though, that sometimes people do that not because they want to hide, but because they don't know the truth.
Yeah.
Right? And when you're functioning from that false belief, I mean, for example, I was an addict and an alcoholic. So everything was skewed.
Yeah.
There was no way for me to see the truth.
Yeah. Yep. That's a very good point, right? And countless people out there don't get introduced to the truth. We grow up, many of us reject the truth because we can't really see it, and we're not ready for it. And then we learn that partying and drinking and drugging and all the rest of it is how you show up as an adult in the world, and we don't need the truth. And it often, people ask me the question all the time: how do we attract younger people into our communities? Well, from my experience, the most transformative invitation to the New Thought philosophy is a massive breakdown of something. Relationship, health, wealth, well-being, job loss. Something goes wrong. It is rare. Maybe let's not say it that way, because I didn't come to it through those things. I got those things later. Right? I got them after I learned the philosophy. Then I got all the trials. Like, shit, not all of them, and there's some I'm not going to have. But like, from a lot of people, countless stories of sitting in the back row of a religious science, New Thought, Unity church for 4, 5, 6, 8 weeks, just crying at the message they heard, which to me is like, my God, how abused your brain was by other people to not believe this already. And again, maybe I'm a little different and special, but I came in the door and everything I heard was like, heck yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. That makes sense. Yep, you guys are on point there. Yep, I've been believing that for a long time. Yep. And I know I'm not the only one that has come through the door that way. There are others that have walked in the door and been like, oh my God, this is what I've believed my whole life. Just didn't know it had a name. Just didn't know there was this guy or this woman or that woman that had been teaching this since when? Last century, right? So if that broad of a range of people can have the same experience, same transformative experience by sitting in our churches and our communities, that to me really points to the fact that this stuff works. And again, once you know it, you can't hide from it. So no matter how ugly it might get, no matter how bad we might label it, we also know that we have the power to change all of it. And eventually I pulled my head out of my posterior and remembered what I knew, and took another turn towards, okay, let's start making this real in the world again, at least in my life. Because by the end of 2018, going into 2019, most of 2019, my life was not working.
Okay. So let's take a break here, because I want to come back and understand what steps you were able to take to bring you forward.
Absolutely.
Okay. So we'll just take a little break. And we're back with Reverend Dr. Robert Brzezinski. All right.
I love that you shared that spot. I love it. Because I don't know if you know this part of the story or not, but that's where it all turns around, is New Thought Radio. So the way the story goes is I'm sustaining my family by driving rideshare, by driving for Uber and Lyft. And I did that for close to 2 years, I think, all in all. Maybe 17, 18, 19. But my experience was, I was putting on the good face, and I was still I had Science of Mind magazines in the back of my car, so you could find a Science of Mind in the back of your Uber, and I'd take it. I got tons of them, right? The magazine was right up the hill at home office. I would get cases of extra magazines and hand them out. And so even in the darkest of experiences in my mind, I'm still trying to teach the Science of Mind. And I got really, really bored of what I was able to listen to on the radio. And when you're spending 10 or 12 hours a day in your car, that little piece in your ear that's giving you directions and is the radio, it gets really boring listening to commercial radio, and none of it is positive. Even the good stuff isn't, few and far between. So one night, I'm really bored. I'm on the internet, and the thought comes. I hear the voice, and it says internet radio. Now, I've watched a couple of ministries come and go trying to do internet radio, and I had supported them over so I knew that this wasn't a new idea, and I also knew that it wasn't an idea anybody had been able to make work, to make it work so they could afford to do the work, right? And when you know it, I bumped into a platform, Live 365, that I had experimented with a number of years earlier, but had gone out of business. Well, it had gone out of business, but someone had bought the name and the rights to the name and held on to all the property, all the websites and all of that stuff. And over a series of years had fixed the problems. And they had just relaunched the platform about 2 weeks earlier. So it wouldn't have been there a month earlier if I had looked. And that night I looked, and it was there, and I said, yeah, and I signed up, and it was purely a hobby. I have a huge collection of music that I've amassed over the last 20 years. It's all on legitimate CDs that I bought, and this company would allow me to upload all that music, and all the metadata would pay, and part of my subscription pays royalties, and all the artists are going to make pennies, but they're going to make something, and it's all legit, and it's all copyright legit, and it's all above board, and it all makes sense, and let's launch a radio station. So we did. What I had forgotten was that this wasn't even a new idea for me, that it was deeply embedded in the visionings and the vision that I had been believing, holding on to, following for a decade or more at that point. Way back when I first got into ministerial school, there were inklings of things like an internet radio station starting to seep through in the visioning practice for me. And I was pretty well versed in the visioning practice before I came to ministerial school. And so, here it is 10 years later, and I'm still using the practice, not as much as I ever had because of my beliefs at the time, but things just kind of started to click. And I started to promote the radio station, and people started to say it was a good idea. And all of it comes to a head in early 2020. I'd actually been invited to officiate a memorial service for a friend of mine, a man who was a couple years younger than me, actually. And we had shared homes together. We had skied together in Utah. We had been part of a brotherhood of men that long before I knew any of this stuff. And I had been invited over to do a memorial for him. And in many ways, it was a real homecoming in that here I am, a minister, and I'm being invited to show up as a minister, but I'm not showing up as a minister anywhere, really, even in driving Uber. And I came home from that trip, and I was already convinced that I was done. In fact, I'd already found another job about a week earlier. I just hadn't really committed to it. However, this also happens to coincide with the discovery of the COVID virus in America.
Yep.
And as the world shut down, I had one thing: prayer, spiritual mind treatment. And I didn't even have the network. I just turned on StreamYard and started praying. And I did it once, and it felt good, and people said they liked it. And I knew nobody was going anywhere but online for a while. I figured that out real quick. And so I started doing it every day, twice a day, 8:15 a.m. and p.m. Mountain Time. You now carry on that tradition, sir. Thank you.
Honored to do so.
And I got a little ahead of myself because just prior to all of that, just prior to my sense of absolute discontent and disgust that I was still driving a car for a living, just before that, I called my original teacher, my first mentor, my still longtime mentor in this. And I was a real bitch. I was whining and moaning and groaning, and bless him and love him. And he told me I was. He told me, you're being a little bitch. And he put me on, and he said, and he laid down the law, and he said, listen, he said, you claim to be a teacher of visioning. You claim to be a minister of religious science. Now is the time to prove that. So you got to prove it to me, and you got to prove it to yourself more. I want you on a 30-day visioning quest. And in mid-January through mid-February of 2020, I did 30 straight days of a private, self-only visioning, and really took a huge deep dive back into the visioning process, which I now call meditative inquiry, by the way. That's act 3 of this story. So, and in those 30 days, and I had to send him a picture of my visioning notes every day. He's like, you text me a picture when you're done. I don't care if it's 9 a.m. or 9 p.m. You text me a picture when you're done with your session for the day, so I know you've done it. Okay, I had accountability. I had all the things we teach. And I dove into the visioning process. And wouldn't you know it, everything that starts revealing itself right before the world is about to shut down and give me the greatest opportunity ever, all of it comes pouring forth through the vision. Stuff I hadn't remembered, stuff that I had been visioning back in 2008, like a radio station, things that were part of my my deep embrace of the philosophy and ministerial school came flooding back through this vision, and still didn't have the name, but just knew I could start seeing pieces of it. Boom, 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 boom. Mid-February, okay, what am I going to do with all of this? I got to get out of the car. Let's get back into some sales. Let's find a way to make some money so we can figure out how to launch a company or a business or something. The world closes, and I'm left with prayer and vision. And since that time, we miss a few prayers here and there. People forget. Technology happens. People sleep through their alarm clocks. It happens. But for the most part, we have provided 2 prayers a day every day for the last, it'll be 5 years in March. We have expanded to more shows than I can remember that have come and gone, and we still have about 40 to 45 hours a week of live broadcasting on the network. The vision has taken hold, and the fun part is I've been nothing more than a conduit of it, really. I've been a cheerleader of it. Yeah, I do the work, and I do this, and I do that, and I show up here, and I imagine this, but it's all the vision. The vision is what keeps leading us forward. I am just blessed to be the keeper of that vision at this point. And the day will come when it's time for me to pass that along. And someone else will come along and pick up the mantle and pick up the baton and pick up the torch and take this great idea forward into a place where it needs to be. It's not my network. It's the network. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I'm just blessed to serve.
Well, it definitely sounds like you are a prime example of another quote that I'll use from Reverend Dr. Michael Beckwith. Pain pushes until passion pulls.
Yes. Yep. And those two things might actually be happening simultaneously. Right? It might be a lot of pain, even when we can see the vision, or even when we know there's a vision. Yes, it's more painful when we're not with the vision, in the vision, when we don't recognize or honor the vision. But the pain definitely pushes, and then we let the vision pull us. And the more I let the vision pull me, the less pain there is. And truly, the less I don't need the pain. The pain's only there to push us when we're going astray. The pain's only there to wake us up when we can't see. The pain's really only there, not because we're bad people or we deserve it. No, the pain's there because we're not paying attention. So if I'm paying attention and I stay in the vision, Ernest Holmes wrote, stay with the one and never deviate from it. To abandon the truth in the hour of need is to prove that we never knew the truth to begin with. In the hour, and now my words, in that hour of need is the supreme and best time to prove to only ourselves that this stuff really works. And in the words of Johnny Coleman, it works if you work it. So I got to work it. And if I'm not working it, I can't blame anybody else for that. If I don't show up to work in the morning, I'm not getting paid. I like getting paid. Let's show up and work in the morning. And again, very blessed to get to work with the people I do. Very blessed that my work is to show up and do visionings on Monday mornings and meditations on different times and have interesting conversations and serve in the places that I do, to bring forward. I think there's no greater spiritual practice truly than visioning. And as I said, I'm starting to change the way I present all that. So I now call it meditative inquiry. It's a couple of words that business people can look at and go, oh, I get it, even though they don't. Or they will, but they will, right? It's an approachable a concept more than visioning. What's that? And everybody and their grandmother right now, it's New Year's. So just go open up your media, folks, and you're going to find 1 billion people telling you you need to have vision and how to, this is how you get your vision for 2025. If you don't already have an idea of what your vision is for 2025, sorry, you're awfully late to the game. Now is not the time to try to figure out what your life's going to be in 2025. You can still affect your life. You can still change your life. You can still have great wins and successes in 25. You can still have great suffering and pain in 2025. But the vision, my point here is that the vision is not something we just turn on and turn off. It's not an oracle deck and we just flip over a card and that's going to guide everything for the rest of our lives or our day or even our week. Visioning is a consistent practice of discerning the greater truth for my life and eliminating that ego. So I don't need to be fired, so that I don't harm others, and transcending that consistent you're not good enough voice, that consistent work harder and make more money voice, to temper that ego voice to a point where I can really hear the divine that says, man, look over there. Something really cool. Something happening over there. And you're about to be a part of it. And they're going to invite you to come be a part of it. Just show up over there and watch the magic happen. And that's really how visioning does work. If we have the ears to hear and the eyes to see the vision, we cannot be led astray. It's just not possible. The law of the universe, this creative law, this law of co-creation, right? We talk about it in every prayer. This universal co-creative law has to use our beliefs to create. It cannot say no to that. The law is the law of the law. It's like gravity. Can't turn gravity on and off. We can't turn the vision on and off. But we do have to tune into it. We have to tune into it often enough and consistently enough that we can tell the difference between the divine and my ego, and personal ego.
Now, there's a book that I purchased recently, which I thought I had right in front of me. I don't. It was by a Reverend Dr. Robert Brzezinski about awareness, as I recall.
Yes. Yes. And that is available on Amazon. Anybody that might want to pick one up. And that itself is an expression of a divine vision. And there's another, by the way, there's another release coming really, really soon. It's like so close to being ready. That talks about how we can use this practice of meditative inquiry, not just in our own life, not just to get clear about who we are, but how we can utilize that and take that into the greater world of organizations and companies and make a bigger impact using meditative inquiry. And in this next book that's coming, I really break out a lot more of the what's happening from that energetic perspective, from that universal perspective of what's happening in the various questions and the stages of the what we know as the visioning process, and how we can expand that. But also how to not dilute the process by over expansion.
What do you mean by that?
Adding new questions, but not so we're no longer beholden to the original 5 questions, and we have an opportunity to add new questions, but not get to the point where we have 25 questions in a session, or where we're asking poor questions. Remember, I started at the very beginning today. The quality of our lives is directly proportional to the quality of our questions.
Right.
Cheap ass questions don't get us any good results. I've been telling my kids for years, why is never a relevant question. The answer to why is because. Because I said so, because I want it to be, because. The answer to a why question is going to come from the ego. Questions such as, what can I do about this? Or what is mine to do in this? Or how do I serve the healing in this? Or how do I serve the expansion in this? Much deeper questions, much more, you'll receive much better answers. So now in meditative inquiry, we can go beyond the learning stages, if you will. We can go beyond the building blocks of questioning and expand into a deeper realm of questions. We have to be tempered and cautious not to dilute our questions and start asking cheap questions again. Right? Oh, why didn't she answer the phone? She didn't answer the phone. Why did somebody steal the wheels off my tires? Because they thought they needed them more. Not everything that happens in our life is directly our responsibility. Why did they steal the wheels off my car? Well, somebody needed them more than I did. So the question becomes, ooh, where am I going to get new wheels? Or how am I open to receiving what's necessary to have a functioning vehicle?
When I listen to you talk about your life, and I listen to how you've moved from one place to another, I envision you in an airplane rebuilding it as it's flying.
Probably a good thing I never learned how to fly. Yeah. Well, life is like that for me. And I do understand it's not like that for everyone. Some people want and need definitive step A, step B, put screw 4B in nut 2C, right? And they need those IKEA kind of directions on how to get things done. I back to my original teacher again. He one of the phrases I always loved from him was, "We're making it up as we go along. So let's make it up in a way that works for us. If you want to make it up so that it doesn't work, fine. But don't go crying to me when it doesn't work," right? So you're making it up, this thing called life. You're making it up as you go along. Make it up so it works for you. I've added a caveat to that, which is as long as it doesn't hurt anybody. Let's come back to our original operating premise of first do no harm. So if you want to buy an expensive $100,000 sports car and lose $20,000 worth of value in the first 10 days and then drive the thing over a curb and lose another 20,000 in value and smash it into a tree because you can't handle that kind of power, okay. Doesn't work for me. If you think that's what's going to work for you, but no one else, again, kind of back to what I was saying, none of us come to our learning, our healing, just because it seems like a good idea. There needs to be a catalyst that says, my life isn't working.
Yep. So one of the things that really strikes me is that when we are in pain, we kind of have a choice. We can either work towards our healing, or we can work towards our suffering.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Right? And what I've seen from what you've spoken of is that you had most certainly had those incidents of pain. And then there were, in the beginning of your story, there was a lot of suffering that you added on because of your doubts and your uncertainties and such. Truth was the antidote. Truth always is the antidote.
Yeah, always is. Yep.
When I did a prayer this morning, I was talking about identity. And I said, okay, you are not your name, your relationship roles, your job, your emotions, your body, your thoughts. You're a spiritual being. Identifying any other way detracts from the majesty of your true essence.
Beautiful.
I wish I could say I wrote that. I didn't. Alan Cohen wrote that.
Alan Cohen wrote it right on. You deliver it beautifully.
All right.
And here's the other thing I want to say, Zoe. You not only deliver that beautifully, but you demonstrate that beautifully.
Thank you.
What I know of you is that's not just something you bumped into, right? That's guiding for you. That's foundational for you. It's principle for you. And because it is, you can't help but demonstrate it. And that inspires people. That inspires people to their own greatness.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Oh, who is this Brzezinski woman?
Enlightening and entertaining. All right.
We try, Laura.
I'll have to get her notes later to see exactly what I said that was enlightening and entertaining. I'm sure she's been taking good notes. She's upstairs. So. Thanks for being with us, honey.
All right.
And I'm going to say thank you to anybody else that's tuning in, whether you're watching live or at another time on a replay. Appreciate you being here. Appreciate you supporting what we do by simply becoming more of who you are in checking out these programs. So,
indeed. Well, thank you so much. This has been a wonderful time for me, and I'm really glad that we were able to do this, even if it did take 8 months to get you. And folks, if the concept of this show resonates with you, please let people know about it. Let them know through your own social media, your personal discussions, get it all out there. And by all means, if there's something that you would like to explore in terms of your own transformation, let me know. All right. I would be delighted to hear, because we're looking at everyone. We're looking at people. We're looking at just who we are and how we navigate the world. So you can email me here at zodemuro@gmail.com. I'm more than happy to hear your ideas. All right. So I will be very, very pleased to see you again next month. And I am delighted to have had this time together. We'll see you soon.
thank you.
All right, now let me see if I can do this right. I'm not kidding. Where is my outro? There's my outro.